All right, everyone, we are ready to continue on with the conference. It is an honor for me to introduce our opening keynote speaker, who is no stranger to anyone in Louisiana. Marc Morial, who has been described as one of the few national leaders to possess street smarts and boardroom savvy, is the current president and CEO of the National Urban League, the nation's largest historic civil rights and urban advocacy organization. He is a leading voice on the national stage in the battle for jobs, education, housing, and voting rights equity. Under his leadership, the National Urban League has grown by every measure that matters, including the recent groundbreaking on the Urban League Empowerment Center, a $242 million, 414,000 square foot project in Harlem. This will be a national treasure that everyone in America should visit. He served as the highly successful and popular mayor of New Orleans, as well as the president of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. He previously was a Louisiana State Senator and was a lawyer in New Orleans with an active, high-profile practice. A graduate of Georgetown University Law Center and the University of Pennsylvania, he has been recognized as one of the 100 most influential Black Americans by Ebony Magazine, one of the top 50 nonprofit leaders by the Nonprofit Times, one of the 100 most influential Black lawyers in America, and he's also been inducted into the International Civil Rights Walk of Fame in Atlanta, Georgia. Although we have to share him with the rest of the country, he was, is, and will forever be a bold and audacious champion of Louisiana and her people. Please welcome Marc Morial. Good morning,
Good
Marc.
morning. Good morning. Is the video on? Are we good?
You are good.
Hey,
You're
Judy,
great,
thank you for the generous introduction. I really appreciate your leadership of the Urban League of Louisiana, but also a long career serving the people in government at the highest levels. It is very special for the Urban League movement to have you in the chair as CEO of the Urban League of Louisiana today to help us navigate through these challenging and difficult times. So I want to say thank you so much. I also want to thank the posse, the orchestra, and those around you, who include the Urban League of Louisiana's volunteer board of directors, the entire great staff that you've assembled, all of the volunteers, especially the young professionals, and the broad array of community supporters who work with and collaborate with and support the work of the Urban League of Louisiana. I'm going to give all of you all a shout out this morning as I have the honor of opening today's proceedings. Let me also acknowledge several other folks. I want to acknowledge Warner Thomas for his commitment to equity through a healthy state initiative. So Warner has said we have to go from 40th to 30th. We've got to make a significant change in the ranking of the state when it comes to health. This is audacious, this is bold, but it's very important that he is a leader who's willing to basically take the risk and say, here's the direction that we need to go. So I appreciate his commitment. The Ochsner organization has become such a significant player in Southeastern Louisiana. Warner's leadership and the team around him are making a significant difference. I also want to thank Amazon and their team, especially Terry Broussard, for their work. They've partnered with the Urban League of Louisiana, as well as the National Urban League on a number of issues. We'll be talking more about that in the weeks and months to come, but I certainly want to thank each of them. This morning, when I woke up like you did, I was greeted with the news of the impending and continuing war in Ukraine. And the news reported that the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, would speak to the Congress, which he just did in the last hour. And I'm often asked, what should our takeaway be? What should we understand? What should African Americans and those that are dealing with the very pressing issues here in this country, whether it be jobs or sustainable and quality education, whether it be healthcare, whether it be the many important issues of criminal justice, racial justice, and gun violence. What should we think about what we're seeing? Obviously, we think that here we see an aggressor by the name of Vladimir Putin leading his very considerable army into a neighboring country to, in effect, take over and occupy that country. Here is what I think we should understand. This leader, Vladimir Putin, was one of the major players 5 years ago in the 2016 election to participate in this pernicious scheme to suppress the votes of African Americans. He used his cyber propaganda system and created a range of, if you will, bogus personalities who posed as Black activists, civil rights activists, and Black Lives Matter activists, who posted videos and messages over a 6 to 8 month period, which fundamentally said to Black America, don't bother voting in this election. You're wasting your time. This same Vladimir Putin is the Vladimir Putin who now shows us, and this is the point, shows us what happens when you lose democracy and you have autocracy, where you have a leader of a country, Vladimir Putin, who's been in power for 20 plus years, unchecked, unbridled, who's amassed this significant army, who's supported by this cadre of oligarchs, who has determined on his own motion, for no reason, to use military power to take over a country that's right next door to his, costing thousands and thousands of lives are going to be lost, producing millions of refugees who are going to spread out over Europe and all over the globe. Untold crises of life and humanitarianism. How does that connect with today's conference? How does that connect with the issues we're concerned about here? Because our fundamental issue today is we have to protect democracy in the United States. Every issue that we're going to talk about on a substantive basis, and that you will discuss through this conference, be it quality jobs, be it participation in the infrastructure program, be it how to close the achievement gap, be it how to end health disparities, be it how to fix the criminal justice system, is all sitting on the system of democracy where we can elect people who represent us in the legislature, at the city council, the police juries, the parish councils, as executives such as mayors or governors. Democracy is our foundation. And we see the contrast of what happens when you don't have democracy. You have autocracy, you have propaganda, you have an aggressor, you have untold loss of human lives. So I began today by reminding us that as we discuss, fundamental to everything is democracy, the idea that we can elect the people who make decisions on our behalf, and that those elections are participatory, fair, and balanced. And what we see today is a pandemic across the nation to suppress American democracy. It happens how? By making it more difficult for people to vote. Something we see in places like Texas and Georgia, most notably, but all across the nation. We see it by how legislatures are drawing congressional districting lines and state legislative districting lines. And in Louisiana, it'll be Board of Elementary and Secondary Education district lines, and ultimately perhaps lines for the judiciary. All of that, ladies and gentlemen, all of that in our beloved state of Louisiana, the state legislature in its recent reapportionment round has not done the right thing. On the congressional districting, they have faced the gubernatorial veto and ultimately and potentially litigation. When it comes to the state legislature, notwithstanding increases in Black population, they've drawn a plan which doesn't fully reflect the equitable participation and the fair opportunity for African Americans to elect people of their choice. So this state legislature, notwithstanding tremendous efforts, has once again, for the 5th time in 6 decades, I believe it is, going all the way back to 1970, has failed to draw up and pass a plan that will not be challenged in the courts or by the United States Department of Justice. We have to keep that central because, as I said earlier, empowerment from an economic standpoint, from a health standpoint, from an education standpoint, sits on a foundation of democracy where we have leaders and representatives who hold those issues dear and who represent the point of view of our communities. So today I centralize that because in the national civil rights discussion, this issue is front and center. The issue of protecting democracy, the difficulty in getting Congress to step in and do the right thing by passing the John Lewis bill and the Freedom to Vote bill, and the understanding that so many of you on the ground here in Louisiana, in the state legislature, the communities, have been pushing back, fighting back for a fair apportionment plan, trying to ensure and protect people's right to indeed vote. Now, let me just pivot and talk about a few important opportunities that are before us. One very powerful opportunity for the state, for the region of New Orleans and beyond, is the passage of the infrastructure bill by the Congress. This is the first time in over 20 years that you have a broad bill that will invest money into our severe infrastructure needs. Southeastern Louisiana, it is roads, it is bridges, it is rail, it is transit. In Southeastern Louisiana, it is time to build that rail line between New Orleans and Baton Rouge that I worked on way back in the 90s, and which would have gotten funded 12 years ago, but for the obstinance of the then governor of the state. That rail line should be primary and principal because of the economic impact and the ability it will allow people to move more freely between Baton Rouge and New Orleans. I live in an area now in the New York area where regional rail and subway systems, Amtrak, really create a sense of the ability of people to move around as an alternative to jumping in a car and driving and trying to find a place to park and spending money on gas, etc. Our needs are the water system, the flood control system, and in New Orleans, the Surgeon Water Board's wastewater and freshwater system. That system is 100+ years old. Any system 100+ years old needs substantial investment to bring it up to grade. This infrastructure bill creates great opportunity. And of course, we have a great set of allies. Cedric Richmond is in the White House. Mitch Landrieu is in the White House. My message to all is, let's make sure when we do this infrastructure bill, we guarantee that Black-owned businesses and businesses owned by women and people of color have a chance to get a fair percentage of the contracts. Let's make sure that the job opportunities in the construction industry also don't bypass the locked out and the left out communities. A great opportunity for us to do something substantial for returning citizens. Louisiana and New Orleans and Southeastern Louisiana has to have its own plane to maximize, if you will, the opportunities and have to think about the opportunities as broadly defined and participatory and inclusive with respect to it. It's a tremendous opportunity. It's going to take 10 to 12 years. The federal investment is going to spawn matching local investments. It's going to spawn private sector investments. This opportunity is an incredible opportunity for the nation to do substantial good. So I'm going to encourage, and we at the National Urban League, under the leadership of another great Louisianian, Donald Cravens, who serves as our executive vice president, will soon be launching an initiative which will include information sessions for Black businesses and businesses owned by people of color and other small businesses who want to learn how to put their best foot forward, how to take best advantage of this infrastructure bill. We want to supply information, so stay tuned. Don may talk more specifically about that at some point. As I understand, he's participating in the conference, but the National Urban League, the Urban League of Louisiana, and all of our affiliates across the nation, we all have a very significant focus on ensuring that this infrastructure investment is going to be an infrastructure investment that lifts all boats as we ensure that everyone is sitting in a boat. So that's what I ask each of you to think about, to commit to. It's the business of the legislature. Louisiana Legislative Black Caucus and others hold the Department of Transportation, hold the governor, hold the executive branch accountable. Local elected officials, make sure your regional planning authorities, your water systems, your public works departments, anyone who is involved, hold them accountable. Make sure that you have a strategy and a policy for minority business participation, right? So all of this is a working conference where we learn. We have electeds, we have people who are community leaders, business, community electeds. Put the infrastructure bill at the top of your list and keep it at the top of your list, indeed, for the next 10 years. So as I wrap, we recognize that we're at an inflection point in American history. We have been through a pandemic where in this nation alone, nearly 1 million people have died in less than a 2-year period. This is tragic. I'm prayerful and hopeful that we're turning beyond the most severe stage of this pandemic. This inflection point also includes the awakening which took place in the wake of the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis, which has created new discussions about justice reform from a policing standpoint and from a broader criminal justice standpoint. Simply because we had an unfortunate and regrettable spike in gun violence doesn't mean we walk away from reforming the justice system. It means we have to balance the two to calibrate it right. But to walk away would be to repeat the failed policies of the past. Gun violence has to be taken seriously. Gun violence has to be interrupted by both law enforcement strategies, gun safety, and yes, gun control measures that I know people are reluctant. There's a hardcore group that doesn't want to do this. We have 400 million guns in the United States, more guns than people. And I could walk into any neighborhood in any city, big or small in the United States, and it would be easier for me to buy a gun than it would for me to buy a lollipop or a popsicle. That's what's happened. So it's got to be that. And it's also got to be addressing root causes, youth programs, job opportunities, wholesome alternatives We have to do all of the above, not one or the other, if we're going to be serious about the combination of things we have to do, which is to reform the justice system, improve police community relations, at the same time, bring down gun violence. So again, I want to thank you so much. And I want to especially say how much I appreciate so many of you for all of the support over the years for me and my family, as well as for the Urban League movement that I'm proud to lead today. New Orleans is my home. I say to people all the time, I may live in the New York area, but New Orleans is my home. It will always be my home. It will always be where my heart and my passion is. People may physically leave New Orleans, but New Orleans will never leave them, because there's something in your soul, it's in your DNA, it's in your heart, it's in your very being. So Judy, thank you so much, and best wishes for the continued success of this conference, and let us go onward and in unity. Take good care, all.